As the Vrax ultimatum echoed across global communications networks, Dr. Elena Reyes requested access to NASA's Deep Space Monitoring Archives. Her colleagues thought she was searching for previous alien contact attempts, but Elena had noticed something peculiar in the background radiation patterns coinciding with the Vrax arrival. Their ships generate unique electromagnetic signatures, she explained to General Morales as they huddled in the Pentagon's secure communications room. But the signatures fluctuate when our satellites pass through certain orbital positions. The general leaned forward, his weathered face illuminated by monitor glow. What are you suggesting, Doctor? Their technology isn't perfectly adapted to Earth's magnetosphere, Elena said, pulling up comparative data charts. Something about our planet's natural electromagnetic field interferes with their systems in ways they didn't anticipate. Meanwhile, in Montana, Marcus Chen climbed the rocky outcrop behind his cabin for the third time that day. The handheld radiation detector he'd salvaged from his military days beeped frantically as another Vrax scout ship diverted its course, avoiding the mountain range yet again. He carefully documented the ship's trajectory, adding it to his growing collection of observations. His satellite phone buzzed, a text from his former commanding officer. Notice anything strange about their flight patterns. Marcus smiled grimly. He wasn't the only one connecting these dots. In homes and shelters worldwide, civilians documented their own observations. A meteorologist in Australia noted Vrax vessels retreating during electrical storms. Miners in South Africa reported their deepest shafts remained undetected by alien scanners. A geology professor in Iceland observed alien ground troops avoiding certain volcanic formations. Elena's secure terminal pinged with an incoming message, a compilation of these civilian reports collected by intelligence agencies. The pattern was becoming clearer. Earth itself possessed natural defenses against the invaders, if only humans could identify and weaponize them in time. As midnight approached in Washington, Elena was summoned to an emergency briefing. The president had authorized a desperate measure, a small tactical response against a Vrax scout ship using experimental electromagnetic pulse weapons. Most advisors predicted failure, but Elena's research had given them their only hope. The attack was launched from a remote Pacific island. Military observers held their breath as the EMP detonated near the Vrax vessel. For 3 breathtaking seconds, the scout ship's engines faltered, its perfect trajectory disrupted before recovery systems engage. It's not much, General Morales admitted as they reviewed the footage, but it's confirmation. They aren't invulnerable. Elena nodded, her mind racing through possibilities. Have you received Marcus Chen's mineral analysis from Montana? His theory about naturally occurring electromagnetic interference could explain why the Vrax avoid certain geographical features. Incoming now, the communications officer announced. The data appeared on screen, complex mineral compositions from locations the Vrax systematically avoided. These weren't random patterns. The aliens were deliberately circumventing areas rich in specific Earth elements. We need to get this information distributed globally, Elena insisted, before they realize we're onto them. As dawn broke over a frightened planet, invisible networks of resistance began forming. Scientists shared data through encrypted channels. Military strategists developed unconventional tactics. Ordinary citizens gathered critical observations about alien behaviors and weaknesses. The Vrax deadline approached with terrifying speed, but humanity wasn't planning to surrender. Earth's greatest weapon, our collective ingenuity, was already mobilizing in ways the aliens couldn't possibly predict. Elena wiped condensation from her makeshift laboratory's concrete walls. The MIT basement had never been designed as a long-term shelter, but it offered critical protection from Vrax scanning technology. Her team had confirmed that the alien sensors struggled to penetrate certain dense materials, particularly when combined with the electromagnetic interference generated by their jury-rigged equipment. The quantum entanglement patterns show microsecond delays between command transmission and execution, she explained to her exhausted colleagues. Their chain of command isn't instantaneous. There's a processing lag we might exploit. Her assistant, Dr. Patel, looked up from his calculations. If we could introduce random variables into their communication network. Exactly, Elena nodded. They excel at processing predictable variables, but chaos throws their entire system into disarray. Across the continent, Marcus crawled through a narrow cave passage, his flashlight illuminating walls glittering with unusual mineral formations. 3 Vrax scout ships had passed overhead without detecting his team, confirmation that his mineral disruption theory was correct. The iron-rich deposits contained rare earth elements that created a natural jamming field against alien sensors. Package the samples in lead-lined containers, he instructed his team. Priority shipment to all resistance cells with manufacturing capabilities. His second-in-command, former Air Force technician Rivera, studied their crude but functional jamming prototype. With these minerals properly processed, we could potentially move large groups undetected, maybe even approach their installations. We're not just hiding anymore, Marcus replied, a determined glint in his eyes. We're preparing to strike back. In Tokyo's underground tunnel network, Hikaru Tanaka meticulously documented his 17th successful Vrax drone disruption experiment. The teenage prodigy had assembled a weather modification device using salvaged electronics and theoretical models he'd developed before the invasion. The correlation is undeniable, he explained to the resistance cell leader sheltering his family. Their atmospheric sensors malfunction when exposed to rapidly changing humidity and barometric pressure gradients. The resistance leader, a former meteorologist, studied Hikaru's findings. You're suggesting we could essentially create localized weather disturbances as tactical countermeasures. Not just suggesting, Hikaru replied, displaying his miniaturized prototype. Ready to demonstrate. The global resistance movement grew stronger each day, communicating through ingenious methods that circumvented Vrax monitoring. Old technologies proved unexpectedly valuable. Analog radio, physical message drops, even Morse code transmitted through power line fluctuations. The very primitiveness of these methods confused the aliens' advanced monitoring systems, which were calibrated to detect sophisticated digital communications. Commander Lin of the Asian Pacific Resistance coordinated the first synchronized counterattack, simultaneous disruptions of Vrax communication relays across 12 cities using Marcus's mineral-based jamming technology. The operation lasted only 7 minutes, but yielded priceless intelligence about Vrax response protocols and tactical vulnerabilities. They respond with mathematical precision, Lin reported through secure channels. But their precision becomes a weakness when confronted with illogical attack patterns. They cannot improvise effectively. As the 3rd month of occupation approached, humanity's disparate resistance efforts coalesced into a coherent global strategy. Alina's transmission decryption team successfully intercepted and interpreted portions of the Vrax command communications, confirming her theory about their hierarchical structure and revealing the existence of the central command entity that coordinated their worldwide operations. The invaders still held overwhelming technological superiority, but humans possessed something the Vrax could not compute or counter. Creativity born from desperate hope, unpredictable tactics emerging from our chaotic individualism, and the stubborn determination to reclaim our world no matter the cost. Elena studied the neural patterns displayed on her salvaged medical scanner, carefully adjusting the sensitivity as the captured Vrax neural implant responded to various stimuli. The device, recovered during a daring raid on a processing center, represented their most significant technological acquisition yet. The neural architecture is designed to suppress individualism, she explained to the assembled resistance leaders connected through their secure network. But look at these response patterns when exposed to creative stimuli, music, art, poetry. The suppression mechanism struggles to maintain control. Dr. Kishimoto, their neurological expert, leaned forward with fascination. These readings suggest the underlying consciousness remains intact. The implants don't erase individuality. They merely override it. Which means, Elena continued, her voice gaining intensity, The conquered species within the collective might be liberated if we could disrupt the implant's suppression protocols. The implications rippled through the resistance network. What had begun as humanity's desperate fight for survival might evolve into something far more profound, a multi-species liberation movement. In the Rocky Mountains, Marcus's mineral disruption technology had evolved dramatically. His team had refined the raw geological samples into precisely calibrated jamming devices that could be mass-produced using minimal resources. We've successfully mapped the electromagnetic frequencies most disruptive to Vrax sensors, he reported, demonstrating the latest prototype. Each device creates a blind spot approximately 20 meters in diameter, enough to move small teams directly past their security perimeters. The resistance leaders immediately recognized the tactical possibilities. With these devices, surgical strikes against Vrax installations became feasible. Rescue operations to free human captives could be planned. Intelligence gathering could expand exponentially. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, the unexpected alliance between indigenous tribes and modern scientific knowledge bore remarkable fruit. The Kayapo people, whose traditional territories remained largely undetected by Vrax scanners, had integrated their generational knowledge of natural camouflage with advanced resistance technology. Their scanning technology fails to differentiate between human biosignatures and the rainforest's complex biosphere, explained Professor Santos, who had established a research outpost under Kayapo protection. The natural electromagnetic patterns generated by certain plant species effectively scramble their sensing equipment. This discovery led to the development of biological camouflage techniques that could be adapted to various ecosystems worldwide. Resistance cells began cultivating specific plant species around their hidden bases, creating natural shields against Vrax detection. The most startling breakthrough came when Alina's team successfully isolated and decoded a complete Vrax tactical operations protocol. The decrypted data confirmed what many had suspected. The invaders operated according to extremely rigid parameters, with minimal capacity for creative adaptation. Their decision trees are comprehensive, but entirely predictable, Alina explained. Once a response pattern is identified, we can manipulate their tactical algorithms by introducing variables outside their programming parameters. Commander Wu of the East Asian Resistance immediately grasped the implications. We can bait them into predictable responses, then exploit the gaps in their tactical programming. Precisely, Alina confirmed. Their perfect efficiency becomes their perfect vulnerability, but only if we coordinate globally and strike simultaneously. As the resistance leaders finalized plans for humanity's first major coordinated offensive, a disturbing transmission reached Alina's decryption team. Communications between the Vrax command structure and an approaching supply fleet. The invasion force was about to receive reinforcements, but the same transmission contained something unexpected, evidence that certain conquered species within the collective were exhibiting increased resistance to neural control. The Vrax weren't just fighting humans anymore. Their entire system of control was beginning to fracture from within. The captured Vrax scout ship represented humanity's greatest prize, a technological treasure trove that accelerated resistance efforts worldwide. The vessel's quantum communication array allowed Alina's team to intercept Vrax transmissions with unprecedented clarity. Their communication protocols rely on mathematical precision, she explained during the global resistance briefing. But this precision creates a fundamental vulnerability. Their systems cannot process truly random variables. Alina demonstrated by introducing random number sequences into the captured communication array. The ship's systems faltered immediately, unable to interpret data that followed no discernible pattern. Human minds excel at handling chaos and uncertainty, she continued. We find patterns where none exist and create solutions through intuitive leaps. The Vrax cannot comprehend this cognitive approach. It literally breaks their operational framework. The resistance leaders immediately recognized the tactical implications. If human unpredictability could disrupt Vrax systems so fundamentally, properly coordinated chaos attacks might cripple their command structure entirely. Meanwhile, Commander Priya Lakshmi's underwater headquarters beneath the South Pacific had evolved into the Resistance's most secure command center. The deep ocean environment naturally shielded them from Vrax detection while providing access to geothermal energy sources. The oceanic electromagnetic interference creates a perfect natural stealth field, Priya explained to newly arrived Resistance representatives. Their sensors cannot penetrate these depths, and the complex sound propagation patterns in seawater confuse their acoustic monitoring systems. The underwater facility housed humanity's most ambitious projects, including the reverse engineering of Vrax technology and the development of countermeasures against their weapon systems. Scientists worked around the clock, combining captured alien tech with human ingenuity to create hybrid systems that the Vrax could never anticipate. The defection of the first Vrax soldier represented another critical turning point. The being, a six-limbed navigator whose neural implant malfunctioned during a skirmish, provided invaluable intelligence about Vrax psychology and social structure. "We were the Kadrak civilization before conquest," the defector explained through a rudimentary translation device. "Our species has been enslaved for 17 generations. The neural network suppresses our individual consciousness, but awareness remains beneath the control mechanisms." The defector confirmed Alina's theory about the collective. The Vrax weren't a natural hive mind, but an artificially created one, binding conquered species into a rigid hierarchy, controlled by the central intelligence they called the Nexus. "The Nexus fears creativity," the defector continued. "Creative thought generates neural patterns that resist implant control. This is why art and music were eradicated from all conquered worlds." This revelation sparked an unexpected addition to Resistance tactics. Alongside conventional operations, Resistance cells began broadcasting human music, poetry, and art near Vrax installations. The impact proved measurable. Vrax response times slowed, coordination errors increased, and in rare cases, more neural implants malfunctioned. The Johannesburg Resistance Cell's successful hijacking of the scout ship inspired similar operations worldwide. Using Alina's decryption codes and Marcus's mineral-based countermeasures, strike teams targeted lighter Vrax vessels, gradually acquiring a small fleet of captured craft. These successes came at a heavy cost. The Vrax responded with brutal efficiency, obliterating areas suspected of harboring Resistance forces. Millions died in these retaliatory strikes, yet with each attack, the invaders revealed more about their tactical limitations and response patterns. Commander Priya recognized the emerging pattern first. They can only respond to what they can predict. When we operate outside their tactical models, they default to overwhelming force, effective but deeply inefficient. This inefficiency created opportunities the Resistance could exploit, drawing Vrax forces into elaborate deceptions while executing their actual objectives elsewhere. Human creativity and adaptability began to systematically undermine the invaders' perfect machine-like precision. Project Prometheus represented humanity's most ambitious technological achievement, a fusion of captured Vrax neural technology with human computer science. The virus it produced didn't just disrupt the neural implants. It created microscopic fractures in the Nexus control protocols that could potentially compound over time. The beauty of this approach lies in its cascading effect, Alina explained to the Global Command Council. Each disruption creates unique failure patterns that the Nexus cannot predict or patch simultaneously. It's forced to address each anomaly individually, an impossible task at scale. The 14-minute window created by the Prometheus virus yielded more than just tactical victories. The Resistance recovered terabytes of Vrax tactical data and, more crucially, liberated 7 Vrax soldiers whose neural implants failed to reconnect to the Nexus. These permanently disconnected individuals offered unprecedented insight into the collective's structure and vulnerabilities. The Nexus maintains control through constant reinforcement of neural suppression patterns, explained one liberated Vrax, a scientist from a species conquered 3 centuries earlier. When connection is severed even temporarily, individual consciousness begins reasserting itself, a process the Nexus cannot reverse without physical reimplantation. This revelation transformed the Resistance's strategic approach. Rather than simply fighting for Earth's liberation, they now pursued a dual objective: planetary defense and systematic disruption of the Vrax neural network to free conquered beings from within the collective. The intercepted distress signal to the main Vrax fleet contained something nobody expected: evidence of widespread neural instability throughout the invasion force. The very act of attempting to conquer Earth was destabilizing the collective. Earth's electromagnetic properties are unique in our experience, confessed another liberated Vrax engineer. The natural field fluctuations and solar radiation patterns create interference that degrades neural implant efficiency over time. Your planet inherently resists our technology. Marcus immediately recognized the implications. We're not just fighting with technology and tactics. Earth itself is our ally. Its natural properties undermine their control systems at a fundamental level. This discovery led to a radical enhancement of the Resistance's planetary defense strategy. Using modified weather control systems and strategically positioned electromagnetic amplifiers, they began intensifying Earth's natural electromagnetic fluctuations in regions with heavy Vrax presence. The effects proved dramatic. Neural implant failures increased threefold in areas with amplified electromagnetic activity. Vrax tactical response times slowed significantly. Command structure coherence deteriorated as individual consciousness began reasserting itself among the invasion force. As the main Vrax fleet approached detection range, Alina made her most significant breakthrough yet, mapping the complete architecture of the Nexus control protocols. This achievement revealed the system's fundamental weakness: its absolute dependence on perfect predictive modeling. The Nexus maintains control by predicting all possible variables and responses, she explained. But human behavior defies complete predictive modeling. Our creativity, intuition, and capacity for irrational action create decision trees too complex for even their advanced algorithms to process. Commander Priya immediately grasped the strategic opportunity. If we deliberately introduce massive unpredictability into our defense strategy, actions that follow no discernible pattern, we could potentially overwhelm their decision-making architecture completely. The global resistance began implementing what they called chaos protocols, defense and attack strategies deliberately designed to appear random and irrational. Strike teams would advance, then retreat without apparent reason, attack insignificant targets while ignoring strategic ones, and employ tactics that seemed to contradict basic military logic. The approaching Vrax fleet, receiving increasingly fragmented and contradictory intelligence from the ground forces, faced an unprecedented challenge: an enemy whose actions they could not predict and therefore could not effectively counter. The chaos engines developed by Marcus's engineering team represented a fundamental departure from conventional electronic warfare. Rather than attempting to overpower Vrax technology, these devices leveraged unpredictability itself as a weapon. Each unit generates completely random electromagnetic patterns derived from three sources, Marcus explained to the Global Defense Council. Atmospheric noise provides the base randomness, human brainwave patterns add cognitive complexity, and quantum fluctuations ensure true unpredictability at the subatomic level. Initial field tests exceeded all expectations. When deployed within range of Vrax systems, chaos engines created cascading failures throughout their prediction algorithms. Navigation systems calculated impossible trajectories. Targeting computers identified non-existent threats. Communication networks transmitted garbled commands that contradicted operational protocols. The effect is similar to sensory overload in biological systems, Elena noted. Their technology cannot process input that defies logical patterns, so it essentially experiences the machine equivalent of cognitive breakdown. Meanwhile, Hikaru's work with Prometheus Prime represented another revolutionary approach to fighting the Vrax. Unlike conventional artificial intelligence designed to make optimal decisions based on available data, Prometheus Prime deliberately incorporated intuitive leaps, creative connections, and even occasional errors, all distinctly human cognitive traits. Conventional AI follows predictable optimization paths that the Vrax can easily counter, Hikaru explained through the secure network. Prometheus Prime introduces human cognitive unpredictability into our defense systems, making them functionally invisible to Vrax predictive algorithms. The defected Vrax provided crucial insight into how these technologies might affect the approaching main fleet. The Nexus core programming cannot be updated to counter truly random variables, explained the former navigation officer. Its foundational architecture requires pattern recognition for all processing functions. This confirmation galvanized the final phase of Operation Thunderstorm's preparation. Weather modification satellites positioned before the invasion were reactivated using Marcus's mineral-based countermeasures to shield them from Vrax detection. These systems began generating precisely calculated atmospheric disturbances designed to maximize electromagnetic interference in key strategic regions. Commander Preya coordinated the global deployment schedule from the underwater headquarters. The synchronization must be perfect, she emphasized. When the main fleet enters near-Earth orbit, all Chaos engines activate simultaneously across every continent, while Prometheus Prime introduces random variables into their targeting systems. The approaching Vrax Armada represented the most significant threat humanity had ever faced, a force capable of reducing Earth's surface to molten slag within hours. Conventional military thinking suggested resistance was futile against such overwhelming technological superiority. But humans had never relied solely on conventional thinking. As the fleet approached detection range, resistance cells worldwide moved into final position. Indigenous knowledge guided teams through terrain invisible to Vrax sensors. Retrofitted civilian infrastructure became camouflaged weapons platforms. Urban resistance units prepared for asymmetric warfare, unlike anything in military history. Most significantly, millions of ordinary civilians implemented localized chaos protocols. Unpredictable movement patterns, deliberately erratic electronic emissions, and randomized activities designed to confuse Vrax surveillance. Earth became not just a battlefield, but an active participant in its own defense, its natural electromagnetic properties amplified by human ingenuity into a planetary-scale defense system. The liberated Vrax officers, now fully integrated into the resistance command structure, watched these preparations with growing amazement. In all our collective memory spanning 17 conquered species, their senior tactician observed, "We have never witnessed a defense strategy based on deliberate unpredictability." The Nexus has no reference framework for this approach. As the main Vrax fleet entered the outer solar system, humanity prepared to weaponize its greatest strength, the beautiful chaos of human creativity that no algorithm could ever fully predict. The main Vrax fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect geometric formation, thousands of vessels arranging themselves with mathematical precision around Earth's orbital paths. Their deployment pattern represented tactical perfection according to conventional warfare doctrine. Overlapping fields of fire, optimized sensor coverage, and precisely calculated approach vectors that would allow systematic planetary bombardment. This perfect formation lasted exactly 43 seconds before Operation Thunderstorm activated. Across Earth's surface, Chaos engines powered up simultaneously. The electromagnetic disturbance was so massive that aurora-like phenomena rippled across the atmosphere even in equatorial regions. The Vrax communication network experienced cascading failures as unpredictable signal patterns overwhelmed their filtering algorithms. Alina's carefully engineered signal propagated through the quantum entanglement relays that connected the fleet to the Nexus. The signal contained no malicious code that Vrax security could detect. Instead, it carried the most dangerous payload possible: pure, unfiltered human creativity. Art, music, poetry, dance, mathematical paradoxes, philosophical contradictions. The transmission bombarded the rigid Vrax neural network with everything that made humanity gloriously unpredictable. Their neural architecture cannot process abstract concepts without pattern recognition, Elena had explained during the final briefing. When flooded with stimuli that deliberately defy categorization, their entire control system experiences the equivalent of cognitive dissonance. The effect exceeded even the most optimistic projections. Throughout the fleet, neural implants registered connection anomalies as individual consciousness began reasserting itself among conquered species. Command ships issued contradictory orders. Attack formations dissolved into confusion as ship captains suddenly questioned commands for the first time in generations. Marcus led the space assault team in vessels that defied conventional aerospace engineering. Hybrid craft combining human ingenuity with reverse-engineered Vrax technology. Their flight patterns incorporated deliberate randomness, making them nearly impossible for Vrax targeting systems to track consistently. Remember, unpredictability is our greatest weapon, Marcus reminded his pilots as they approached the massive Vrax flagship. No formation flying, no consistent attack vectors. Make every maneuver a surprise, even to yourselves if possible. The resulting space battle shattered every tactical convention. Human pilots executed maneuvers that bordered on suicidal, deliberately flying into crossfire zones only to make last-second course changes that Vrax prediction algorithms couldn't anticipate. Ships accelerated then decelerated without apparent reason, fired at seemingly insignificant targets while ignoring strategic ones, and communicated using constantly changing encryption that followed no discernible pattern. Against overwhelming technological superiority, humans deploy their evolutionary advantage, minds shaped by millions of years of survival through adaptation, creativity, and intuitive leaps that no algorithm could replicate. Meanwhile, Prometheus Prime infiltrated the Vrax fleet's communication architecture, introducing subtly randomized variables into their targeting systems, navigation controls, and coordination protocols. The AI didn't attempt to seize control. It simply introduced enough unpredictability to render their perfect technological precision effectively useless. As Marcus's team fought their way aboard the flagship, they encountered increasing numbers of Vrax soldiers experiencing neural implant failures. Many simply stood immobilized, caught between conflicting commands as their individual consciousness battled the Nexus control protocols. Others actively assisted the human forces, their liberated minds recognizing the opportunity for freedom after centuries of enslavement. Alina's team, monitoring the battle from Earth, detected a significant shift in the flagship's energy patterns. The Nexus was diverting critical resources from weapon systems to neural control mechanisms, a clear sign that maintaining collective cohesion had become its primary concern. The perfect invasion force was fracturing from within, its greatest strength transformed into its greatest vulnerability by humanity's beautiful chaos. 3 years after the decisive battle, humanity's reconstruction efforts transformed the scared landscape into something new, neither purely human nor alien, but a harmonious integration of both. The fallen Vrax vessels, once symbols of terror, now served as foundations for remarkable architectural achievements that combined Earth materials with salvaged alien technology. Alina walked through the newly established Galactic Relations Complex in Geneva, marveling at how quickly humanity had adapted to its new role in interstellar politics. Representatives from 17 formerly conquered species now maintained permanent diplomatic missions on Earth, each bringing unique perspectives and technologies long suppressed under Nexus control. The Galactic Conference begins in 30 minutes, Director Reyes, her assistant, reminded her. The Kadrax delegation has requested a brief private meeting beforehand. Alina smiled at the mention of the Kadrax, the first Vrax species to fully liberate itself from neural control during the final battle. Their natural affinity for music had made them particularly susceptible to humanity's creative disruption signal. Now they served as Earth's most steadfast allies in establishing peaceful relations with distant star systems. In his laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, Marcus supervised the final calibration of the integrated planetary defense grid. The system represented a perfect synthesis of human ingenuity and adapted alien technology, designed not for conquest but protection. The shield harmonics are stabilizing, reported his chief engineer. The mineral-based disruptors have been successfully integrated with the modified Vrax deflector technology. Marcus nodded with satisfaction. The beauty of this system isn't its power, it's its adaptability. No two sections use identical frequencies or patterns. Like Earth itself, its strength comes from diversity. This philosophy extended beyond defense systems to every aspect of post-invasion society. Rather than simply adopting superior alien technology wholesale, humanity had carefully integrated it with existing Earth systems, preserving the creative chaos that had proven so effective against the Vrax, while benefiting from their technological precision where appropriate. Hikaru, now heading the Institute for Cognitive Computing, watched as Prometheus Prime facilitated a remarkable exchange between human and alien musicians. The AI had evolved far beyond its original military purpose, becoming a bridge between different species' thought patterns and creative expressions. The system doesn't translate between minds, Hikaru explained to visiting scientists. It creates a shared cognitive space where different types of consciousness can interact directly. The music they're creating couldn't exist within any single species' perspective. This approach to integration characterized Earth's emergence as an interstellar power. Unlike the Vrax, who had conquered through force and neural subjugation, humanity offered partnership that preserved and celebrated diversity. Species that had been enemies under Nexus control discovered new possibilities for cooperation when freed from imposed uniformity. The most profound transformation occurred among the formerly conquered species themselves. Centuries of neural suppression had not erased their underlying cultures and identities, but merely buried them. As these civilizations reclaimed their autonomy, they experienced a renaissance of art, music, philosophy, and scientific innovation that enriched the entire galactic community. At the United Nations ceremony marking the 3rd anniversary of liberation, representatives from all 17 freed species presented humanity with their highest honor, a crystalline monument containing cultural artifacts from each civilization, symbolizing the precious diversity nearly lost under Nexus control. Humanity did not merely defeat an invasion, the Kadrax ambassador declared. You shattered a chain of conquest that had bound our galaxy for millennia. Where the Nexus sought perfect order through forced uniformity, you showed us a better way. Strength through diversity, resilience through adaptation, and harmony through celebrating our differences rather than erasing them.